Hi, welcome to a brand new video on the Target Individual Program, the Target Individual Experience. As you guys can see, I'm doing more videos in this format because, just learning about how I'm being targeted by the NYPD, by paid snitches, informants who lie, by people who they use to try to and will manipulate you and hide the fact, well, for the fact, because they know that what they've done to you was criminal and illegal, and they're trying to protect themselves. Okay, and in order to do so, they have to set you up, frame you, get people to tell lies, because that's what criminals with badges do. They are criminals for a reason, and they carry a badge and a gun for a reason. It is to protect themselves from any criminal investigation. Okay, because very few of them end up getting prosecuted and convicted of crimes against innocent people. Okay, so on my way home tonight, they were. I was on the bus. There was some police vehicle parked up. Lights flashing. They were standing on the sidewalk with some guys, right? Black guys. These are white cops of black guys. I call the black ones the Sambos because despite the history of these white supremacist police treatment of black people, that yet somehow they can convince them to target another black person. But again, it's because I understand our programming and how we're conditioned, the war against us on our minds, bodies, our intelligence. We can be easily manipulated and influenced under various circumstances. And that's not to say that that black people are not strong people. We are. Because despite everything that has been done to us, we are still alive, we're still here. Though we may suffer a lot of problems, whether it be health, physical, mental, or what have you, we're still alive, right? And despite what the white supremacists think that they can do to us and get away with it, there are those of us that will take a stand and say no way, and will expose it. And the one thing that they hate is exposure, you see, because you have to understand the personalities of these people, okay, these white supremacists. And yes, they can also be black, okay. They have the dark triad personality traits, okay. This is who they are fundamentally. All right. So tonight, as I got home, I got off the bus. The bus driver again started doing these, didn't stop at the bus stop, but further up, in between a gray vehicle and a black vehicle. And usually when they do stuff like that, it's like they're trying to give you like a choice, right? Gray is a neutral color, and so it's like they're trying to be neutral or not neutral, and the color black, as I explained many times on my video of how this was referencing to my son, my older son, who's 21. Okay, and I talk about this code officer who, as I was going, I was in criminal court. Okay, and he came up to me with this white police officer, this white court officer, and said to me, "Leave her alone." And I'm like, "Who the hell are you talking about?" You know? So I just looked at this dude like, you know, I guess he was talking about my eldest son, mother. Which, listen, I was done with her. So yeah. Anyhow, so from that, they've been using the color black. Also, they'll use it to try to intimidate, along with the ambulances, right? So, when you go to a funeral, you get everybody's dressed in black, right? So they'll use it in that term and that theme also. So as I got to my block, this guy I knew, we grew up together, went to high school together. And I talked about this where during my earlier years and being targeted very heavily, and sometimes they were trying to manipulate me into becoming angry. And one day, after a heavy day of targeting, yeah, I was very angry. And when you're implanted, they know what you're thinking, right? It's remote neural monitoring. And so they had this guy, okay, and I haven't spoke to him in, over, excuse me, about over 10 years, okay, almost that long, and I'm walking home one night. There was no one around. It wasn't late. It was, I think it was in the spring, if I'm not mistaken. And he just happened to be standing next to his car. Now, I didn't think anything strange of it at the time. My thing was like, I had a heavy day of targeting. I'm very angry. I just want to get home. So he calls me over. And, he was like, let me show you something. Okay. So he opens his trunk of his car and he pulls out a box, and he opened the box and there was a gun in the box. Okay. Now, at the time, I didn't understand why he would show me this. Because, like I said, it isn't, I haven't hang out with this guy or spoke, at length for over, a long time, right? Almost a decade. So, I remember a website that I found about another TI, and he was talking about how the police were trying to set him up. And, that night I just said, it's nice. I didn't touch it because I was like, yeah, I'm not falling for that shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, nope. So, I made my way home. And I'm telling you this because, they will use people, manipulate them into doing things like that. Now, had I been angry to the point where I would be like, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to start shooting people for targeting me, right? Then they would have said, oh, disgruntled black man shooting people. Okay. But nobody would have ever known that how I was brainwashed, implanted with a microchip for mind control and remote neural monitoring. No one would have believed me, right? Because, they label you, with a mental illness. This is how they get away with these things. Okay. And like I said, I spent over a decade researching these things because it was important to me to understand what was done to me, not just me, but other TIs, right? Because I'm a twin, so I have a twin brother who was targeted in the mid 90s. And the fact that we're twins, it didn't dawn on me that, though I may not have noticed the programming, but it was affecting me subconsciously. I didn't even understand that until I started learning about psychology and, Coercive Persuasion programming, and these things, and also the technology, silent sound, spectrum, and all these things. Okay. But like I said, they will always find and use people, manipulate people, and they may not even know it. He may not even know it. But at the time, I didn't, I was being targeted so heavily. I wasn't even, it didn't dawn on me that they were mind controlling him. It really didn't. But it wasn't until much later that I realized, they can actually mind control people, co-opt their consciousness, take it over. And, we in the Black community, particularly as young teenagers and young men, we don't quite have a grasp of white supremacy and what it has truly done and what it is doing to us. I keep saying that the communities that we live in are nothing more than laboratories for white supremacists. Okay? And they experiment on us on a daily basis, some more so than others. Okay? They poison us, they run psychological operations, they drug us. So we don't have a clue, really. The majority of us, I should say, don't have a clue as to what's really going on within communities in which Black and brown people live. Okay? And these white supremacists on the police force, on the higher ups and the security agencies, we are their expendable playthings. Okay? They can destroy our lives. They can plant guns, drugs, anything on us, okay, to convict us of a crime. This has been going on for a very, very long time. And the reason why we put up with this as a people is because of the technology that they've developed, okay, that basically can control our emotions. They can suppress our anger. And many people, particularly those of us who are Black in America, and because we are so religious and we think that only God can control our mind and God is in control, like they will say, let Jesus take the wheel. I have to laugh, really, because, they have made us so ignorant that it is comical to them. Okay? So over the past couple of years, I would say decade, when you look at people who are in law enforcement, Black people who fought against corruption, I think I did a video of this judge, a Muslim judge, a woman who was found in the Hudson River. They said that she committed suicide. And then I was reading about, I remember this Brooklyn DA, his name was Kent Thompson, and he died of cancer. And I knew something fishy was going on. Okay? I knew something fishy. But did you guys know that his wife won a settlement against a doctor, right? Over $1 million, because this doctor, they claim, failed to diagnose his cancer. And I don't think this doctor failed. It was deliberate. Okay, these white supremacists will do anything, particularly those on the police department and the police force, to stop anybody from bringing them to justice. Okay, so I'm just gonna read a this article here. Right, Brooklyn DA investigating NYPD officers planting guns on suspects. And what saddens me is that we within the black community, when we hear somebody have a criminal record, we marginalize them, we call them criminals, and we know that there is a great possibility that that person was set up by the police, that that person was innocent and got framed and got convicted of a crime that they did not do. Too many black people, black and brown people, but specifically black people, have been used to feed the prison industrial complex, have been used to increase the number of arrests so that police department can get increased fundings to buy all sorts of weapons, technology, surveillance technology, and many other things that they hide and lie about as to not having, like the Stingray, like X-ray vans. Okay, so what else are they hiding, and what other technologies are they using that we don't know? And this is where I come in. This is why I do my videos, to expose what it is that they've been doing. And they've been doing this for a very long time. Let's talk about how being microchipped in the police precinct as I was sleeping, drugged by their, their civilian criminals who they use to drug people, right? And all sorts of things. Okay, so this article is an old article written January 19, 2015. East Flatbush, Brooklyn District Attorney Ken Thompson announced Thursday he will open an investigation into police corruption in the 67th precinct after a man was cleared on gun charges. Charges against Jeffrey Heron, 57, were dropped after prosecutors failed to produce an unnamed informant they said tipped them off that the accused man was carrying a gun. Police said they saw Heron throw out a bag in a garbage can as they approached him that they said was concealing a weapon. Heron maintained it was just a garbage bag. Heron case raised concerning similarities with a number of other weapon charges in the 67th precinct that finally sounded an alarm to the DA. He said that he would launch a probe into allegations that officers were planting weapons on people they arrested. We will investigate the arrests of Mr. Heron and other arrests by these officers because of the serious question raised in this case, Thompson said. The NYPD Internal Affairs Bureau also said there is an active investigation into the issue in East Flatbush. And wouldn't you know, the 67th precinct is one of the precincts that they use to target me, right? And I think you guys probably see them on the videos that I've done. Okay. Now, Deborah Silberman, Heron public defender, said she received a tip about one of the officers involved in her client's arrest from the DA's office back when she started digging into her client's case in 2013. She unearthed 5 other cases with suspicious weapon charges, all involving the same group of 67 precinct officers dating back to 2008. Now, she just found us 5, right? So, how many more? Okay. How many more? And I keep saying this to people when I talk to them on the street. It's like how many more of our brothers and sisters are sitting in prison for crimes committed against them by crooked, racist law enforcement officers, including the black ones, okay? The white supremacists with black skin, okay? With strapped resources at the Brooklyn Defender's Office, Silberman said she thought it was unlikely she uncovered the only case linked to these officers. There could be dozens of clients who even took guilty plea to reduce their sentence, Silberman said. That's what happened in John Harper's case. Harper couldn't make bail when he was accused of weapon possessions in the summer of 2012, his lawyer Renee Seaman said. Cops said they found Harper with a weapon, but Harper maintained that he had no idea what they were talking about. Harper was held for a year at Rikers Island before trial. Then prosecutors offered him freedom if he pleaded guilty with the time he already served. Seaman thought she could get Harper out of Rikers with just a little more time, but she remembered Harper saying, "Not if I can go home to my wife tonight." In light of the Brooklyn DA's remark Thursday, Seaman says she's hopeful she can clear Harper's name. Okay, he is going to be vindicated, she said, and now his innocence is going to come to light. Again, so, when we hear about, remember too, New York City had some of the most corrupt police officers and department in the past, in the 70s and 80s and 90s. I mean, if you guys ever heard of Frank Serpico, okay, he was a police officer who literally spilled the beans on the corruption of the NYPD because the mob was controlling a lot of these precinct commanders, officers. Okay. Now, check this out. So this article was January 19, 2015. Okay. Now, and this came out February 24th of this year. Okay. So the family of late Brooklyn District Attorney Kenneth Thompson will receive a $1.15 million in a settlement with a doctor who treated the cancer-afflicted prosecutor before his 2016 death, the Daily News has learned. Thompson's widow, Lou Shawn Thompson, filed a wrongful death suit in 2018 on behalf of her husband, claiming his entirely preventable passing was due to the failure of Dr. Arthur Kornblum, hope I'm saying that correctly, to timely diagnose his colorectal cancer, which ultimately spread to his brain and the rest of his body. More than 4 years later, the family has settled for more than $1 million in Brooklyn surrogate courts with Kornblum, according to court paper. The judge approved the settlement on January 3rd. It doesn't bring him back, and it's not enough, LaShawn Thomas told the Daily News. I don't think any dollar amount will ever be enough. But this is one piece of my life that's over with. I can move on from now. Okay? So this man, cancer was totally treatable and preventable. But the doctor didn't misdiagnose. He ignored it. He knew. You got to understand what white supremacy is and what it does and continues to do to black people. Okay? We're talking about doctors, lawyers, every aspect, every facet of society. White supremacist is there. You cannot ignore it. And for those of us who want to ignore it, we're doing a disservice to ourselves as well as our children, because we're not teaching them the truth, and they will be caught off guard if a racist white person wants to do them harm. And that racist white person could be a police officer. Okay? So let me just, hearken this for a moment here, because when I go to the doctor, I'm always suspicious. I always look at what they do, see if they're targeting me. And when I take any sort of blood test, particularly, twice a year I take an STD test. And so I always have to be cautious of what they say to me and listen to what they say to me. Okay? Because my experience with doctors, particularly white doctors, has not been a good one. Okay? Even some of the Indian doctors, right? They don't. Sometimes you'll go there, you'll tell them what's wrong with you, and how you feel, and have you. And sometimes it's like you're diagnosing your own sickness or illness, right? And I mean, it's really ridiculous. But we have to understand as Black people how these things, how white supremacy truly works. And Neely Fuller said it best. He's like, until you understand white supremacy in its entire scope, is in its entirety, everything you think you know about white supremacy is wrong. Okay? We have, as Black people, been abused, assaulted, murdered, used as test subject, used as pawns, used as ATM machines, literally, to fund white people salaries. We talk about modern day slavery, low pay having to be threatened that if you don't work overtime, you could lose your job. All these things that they do to us. But we are we are a compliant people. We are a very, passive people. Okay? Because if it was anybody else, any other group of people, they wouldn't do it. And today I posted an article of a Black nurse who, she filed a racial discrimination suit against the hospital, and they tried to set her up and said that she caused the death of a patient. Okay, she got fired. They took away her nurse's license. Okay, only to find out that they lied. Okay. And particularly, I tell, I say this, particularly when it comes to Black women in the medical field, particularly as nurses, particularly when they choose to ignore a lot of the racist comments by some of these doctors. And, they're a lot of them are very giddy-eyed by these white doctors. And these same doctors are letting Black women die in the delivery room. They're letting them die in the emergency room. They're letting Black people die, period, because they don't believe us when we say we are in pain. They tend to not diagnose us properly, not take the time to listen. Okay. And there have been a lot of black people who were sent home and end up dying because the emergency room doctors, white doctors, okay, refuse to listen to them. And you even have some black nurses too. I was in a hospital a few years ago, and I posted pictures, you know, with these, trying to draw my blood, and they were sticking me in my arm with so many needles because they couldn't, it's like they didn't know how to take blood from someone, and hearing these black nurses, women, older women, telling me, oh, I'm a big guy. I can handle it. I can take it. You know what I'm saying? They have adopted the same mentality. And it was a shame to me, when I look at these black women, how they behave, just like these white doctors. We are brainwashed people. We are people who are filled with self-hate. And so when we look at each other, we don't see the humanity in each other. That's why I had to change my way of thinking, particularly being a target individual. But I also had to, reject a lot of the Eurocentric way of thinking that I've been programmed with. I couldn't do it anymore. When you realize the truth, the lies that have been told to you, when these people have done things to you, and then try to get the community to fight against you. And I know there are other TIs, white, Asians, whatever, who they get people in their community to fight against. So, but like I said, as a black person, it's always a double-edged sword, because not only do we have to deal with the targeting for those of us who are TIs, but the fact that, we are black, it's, I'm not going to say worse, but it is more multifaceted, okay? Because racism plays a big part in our targeting as well, okay? So not only did I think that, they killed this man, and they did it in such a way to make it look as if it was a naturally occurring thing, but I just wanted to bring this up because, like I said, it's whenever you have black people in those positions, right, and they go after these cops, racist cops, okay, including those who are black, that would plant gun on innocent black men. If you're a black police officer, you're a racist. Simple as that. You're a Sambo. And I'll call you that in your face. I don't care what you want to say, how mad you want to get. Because if you have a son and another black police officer planted a weapon on your son, you would be angry at that very same police officer. Okay? So, like I said, we as TIs, as well as those who are not TIs, have to understand that these things happen every day in the black community. Every day. Okay? Then the use of I'm gonna get back to this in a minute. This is a archive of police criminality. Okay, and I'll get back to that in a few. But here is the article of the NYPD paid an informant to help a BLM protester charged with sabotaging police van. Now, again, hiring people, snitches, paying them to manipulate, coerce, entrap political activists or protesters. And they're very crafty because they teach them how to manipulate people, and then they look for the most vulnerable amongst us to entrap. Okay, so the NYPD sent a paid informant to surveil, befriend, and ultimately drive a Black Lives Matter protester to attack a police van last month, according to a new federal complaint on seal on Wednesday. The civilian informant, identified in the filing as the NYPD's confidential source, was involved in the arrest of Jeremy Trapp, a 24-year-old Brooklyn man accused of sabotaging an NYPD vehicle. At best, Mr. Trapp is unsophisticated and easily susceptible, his defense attorney Ashley Burrell said during his arraignment on Wednesday afternoon. According to a federal prosecutor, Trapp met the NYPD informant outside Brooklyn Criminal Court on July 13th as protesters gathered to demand the release of individuals arrested during a demonstration in Bay Ridge. Trapp told the source that he thought cops were racist, that he wanted to harm police, and that he was previously involved in burning an NYPD vehicle. According to the complaint, after exchanging phone numbers, the two arranged to meet in the informant's car. During their first meeting, the 24-year-old allegedly told the informant that he wanted to burn down the Verrazano Narrows Bridge so that white supremacists wouldn't be able to get from Staten Island to Brooklyn. The following day, the complaint stated, the informant drove Trapp to the bridge to take photographs. On July 17th, the informant again picked up Trapp from his mother's home. They drove to Sunset Park, where they found an unattended NYPD van. Now, come on. Trapp, using a scissor-like tool, allegedly crawled under the vehicle and cut part of the lines while the informant acted as a lookout. The informant then drove Trapp to City Hall, where they walk around the protest encampment. According to the complaint, Trapp was arrested shortly after on charges of reckless endangerment and criminal mischief. He was released by the Brooklyn District Attorney on his own reconnaissance. The confirmation of the NYPD use of paid informants came on Wednesday when the federal prosecutors brought their own charges against Trapp for the alleged brake cutting incident. Now, if you don't think the local and state police department don't work with the FBI to entrap people, you're sadly mistaken. Entrapment used to be against the law, right? Because they understood that, well, those in the judiciary understood that police will sometimes target the most vulnerable people to entrap them. And also, it is to prevent those sort of corruption where you have police would basically search out people who obviously had mental issues and manipulate them and entrap them into not even committing a crime, right? But it's a fake crime, a stage event that they set up, and then arrest those individuals. Okay, but this is something that people don't get angry about, and it's really ridiculous. So anyway, it is unclear how many paid informants the NYPD may have embedded in recent protests against police brutality. A spokesperson for the department did not respond to Gotham's inquiry. The disclosure raised immediate objection from both activists and civil rights attorney, who recalled the department's controversial use of the tactics to surveil Muslims in the wake of 9/11. Let me, tell you my experience about that. So after 9/11, New York was on high alert for a few years. Again, I was home. I think I went to the store. So as I'm walking to the store, I saw a van that's double parked on the side of the street that I'm walking on. Side of so I'm walking on the sidewalk. I went into the store, got something, can't remember what it was. As I was walking back, the passenger side window was a van. The window rolled down, and there were two Muslim guys in the van. And one of them was calling me over. No, at this time, this was a few years into my targeting, so I knew, okay, that one, if I go talk to these guys, they were probably having somebody take pictures of me talking to two Muslim guys so they can, create some fictitious story so they can, continue to have me under surveillance or what have you. Because this is what they do. They'll get people to lie. And remember, perception is huge, right? You may not be into any criminal activity, but if they can make it look like you were associating with someone who may be into criminal activity, that's what they'll do. And therefore, they'll put you under surveillance. Okay? It is a way of keeping certain people, groups of people, under the watchful eyes of law enforcement. Okay? And they have to create ways in which that they can do it legally as opposed to illegally. Right? So, it's troubling, said Martin Stoller, a civil rights attorney who spent nearly 5 decades challenging NYPD surveillance overreach. It sounds like they put the informant to work circulating among the protesters. We don't know how far back it extends, how long they had this guy in play. The NYPD paid informants have previously faced scrutiny for their role in pushing their targets to commit a discussed crime. A former NYPD informant told the Associated Press that he was paid $1,000 to bait his Muslim associates into making incriminating statements. In another high-profile case, a paid NYPD informant allegedly spent months prying Jose Pimentel with food and marijuana, enticing the apparently unstable man to build a bomb. Now, if you have no knowledge of bomb making, and particularly if you're unstable, you're not thinking about building a bomb, okay? But this is what they do. Again, I talk about narcissism, malignant narcissism, and the dark triad personality types. This is who these people are. I posted a video maybe 2 years ago or so, about that personality types, and they took the video off of YouTube. Okay? They had the video removed. All right? So anyway, the way they stayed on the payroll is turning over criminals so they have an incentive to create a crime. Exactly. This is what they do. They create the crimes. Okay, and they will find marginalized people, people who clearly, you know, are going through some things, whether it be mentally, physically, what have you, and they will use their moments of vulnerability, okay, to manipulate them. Okay, so they're working for money. They're not working for justice. During the arraignment on Wednesday, the federal judge sided with prosecutors, ordering Chap be held without bail. He faced up to 20 years in prison if convicted. Again, we talk about the manipulation setups of individuals and the fact that you have judge. Well, you're a black man standing in court, uh, particularly in front of a possibly white supremacist judge. Yeah, you know the outcome. Okay. Here's another story about lying informants put too many people in prison. Missouri makers, you can fix it. Okay. So this tells the story of a secret government witness was used to help send Keith Kane's, Corns of Kansas City to prison for life for a mother he may not committed. He may have not committed. This week, the Missouri Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in the case to determine if Cons is entitled to post-conviction relief. Okay, so I said he was convicted of killing a rival drug dealer, and the detective with the Kansas City Police Department withheld key evidence from Kane's legal defense team. Right? Appellate attorney for Kane's successfully argued the secret agreement between police detective and witness Wendy Lockett, among other legal issues, they said require a new look at the facts of the case. So here's this woman, again, another black woman, lying because they're being paid. Either they're being paid with money or drugs, okay? Or they may have committed a crime, and the way for them to get a lesser charge or get out of that crime is to become a snitch for the police and lie, or paid informant and lie. What a lot of people don't understand is that you can make a career out of becoming an informant for the police or for the FBI. And you can make millions of dollars in doing so. And they don't care if you're lying or not. Matter of fact, they want you to lie. Okay? So how many other cases where the police, right, the prosecutor, had evidence of that can clear the person from what he or she's on trial for, and decide to withhold that evidence from the defense team, sending that innocent person to jail. Okay? And I keep saying that if black Americans were really serious about holding America accountable for the atrocities against black people in this country, they would go to the United Nations, okay, draft a resolution outlining crimes against humanity, and then sue the United States government for trillions. They don't want to give you reparation. This is how you do it. You sue the United States for the trillions of dollars that is owed to African descendants of slavery, ADOS. This is how you do it. Okay? Because again, these things happen every single day. These white supremacists on the police department, their job is to make sure that every black man in America have a criminal record. Because once you do, they know as a black man, okay, that will ruin your chance of getting employment, getting any sort of federal assistance. If you want to go to college and you're trying to get financial aid, it's not going to happen. They know this. It is, they have been destroying our lives, the lives of black men, and then manipulating black women to participate, and other black men also to participate in criminal activities against their own people. These are Sambos. Okay? So, the failure by police to disclose Lockett was a police informant violated Kane's right to a fair trial. His attorney argued during an evidentiary hearing last year in front of Special Master Williams Hickle. Several other witnesses who came forward to identify a different man as the shooter were deemed credible by the special master. Lockett and other witness Lorraine Murrow lied under oath during Kane's. I keep saying Kane's or Kane's, you know, during Kane's jury trial in 2005. His attorney contended Lockett recanted her testimony that identified Carnes as the killer, and her initial statement to police did not name him. Newly discovered evidence showed. She switched her story again at the hearing before Hickley and went back to calling Carnes the killer. So obviously they must got something on her for her to keep switching her stories. Okay, they might be threatening her, you know. Please, the police are the biggest when it comes to witness tampering. The police are the biggest ones that are guilty of witness tampering. Okay, so again, you know, I have to highlight these things because this has been going on for decades and decades. And me being a TI, all TIs, you know, targeted because, again, non-consensual experimentation. And so they have to try and set you up so then they can use whatever it is that they think that they have to silence you. But like I said, don't fall for it. Okay? Learn what happened to you. Do the research. And you have to let them know that it doesn't matter what they do, what they say, who they can get to lie. Okay? That you're going to expose them. Because the best way to defend yourself against this, what they do, what I call not what I call, but what is called the trial of public opinion, and how they can, you know, use the public to cancel you, right? This is where the cancer culture comes from. This is a white supremacist and feminist movement, and particularly against black men. Okay, so this is the Marshall Project. This is a nonprofit journalism about criminal justice, and they have a vast collection of articles about cops planting evidence. Okay. And so if you're a TI, I would suggest that you go on here and read a lot of these articles, because if you suspect the police in your state, your city, your town is trying to uh, plant evidence in order to incarcerate you or institutionalize you, okay, you have to be knowledgeable of some of the tactics, the methods, and who they use, and the use of honey traps, snitches, the use of drugs to drug you, also the technology I talked about, silent sound spread spectrum. So if you've been watching my videos in this format recently, I've talked about these things. Okay. And so, with that being said, I think I'm going to end this video. I'd like to say that as a TI, when I do these videos, like I said, I don't separate who I am as a black man from a TI, because black people are TIs. Even the one that target you and I, they're also target individuals, but they're brainwashed. They're brainwashed with religion. They're brainwashed with the technology that they don't understand. They don't even want to believe it, but it exists. And so, and a lot of times also it's their religious belief, right? They're following religious leaders, they're obviously destructive cults. And, you got to understand the mentality of people who within religious organization, okay, who follow their leaders, their religious leaders, their pastors, their bishops, or whatever they want to call themselves, prophets or what have you. And they are willing, they're what the leaders would call his flock or her flock, they're willing to do whatever it takes to please their leaders. Okay? So you got to understand that. It is brainwashing. They're also being brainwashed by these charismatic people. Okay? And because they understand and learned how to manipulate people, okay, how to put people in a hypnotic state, or how to induce post-hypnotic suggestions, they do it on these unsuspecting individuals. Okay, so you got to understand that. And it'll take some time, I used to be very angry. But like I said, I've learned a lot. Okay. So that being said, I will speak to you guys on the next target individual program, target individual experience.